Hello and welcome to yesterday's Airlines. jcwings have announced their late October set of announcements, mostly for models which should probably appear in December, I'm guessing. And it is quite a large batch. In fact, there are 23 models announced here, of which 19 are models that should get to market reasonably quickly. And I happen to know that the driving force behind this expansion of the jcwings releases is one man, a man who's been helping out jcwings quite a lot recently, and boy could they do with some help, because they just don't seem to know sometimes quite how to run their business. So the number of releases has been increased because it's good for the market, really, despite all this stuff about flooding the market. If NG models can release 30 models a month, why can't JC release 20? There's no good reason. So I think that makes sense, but also because there's such an enormous backlog in the jcwings factory. They're producing, and then forgetting to actually sell the models they're making. So as I understand it, there are over 500 models pre-made sitting in the factory. So they really need to increase the number of models they're releasing to the market, or they're never ever going to get through that backlog. And keeping that giant backlog sitting in your factory is a problem. Firstly, obviously it's costing you money, presumably, just for the storage space, let alone the fact that you've spent all this money on materials and design and you're not recouping it. But additionally, it means that models hang around for so long they become obsolete and almost pointless to release, because competition releases them, or new molds are made which are much better, and suddenly your molds and models that have been sitting in your factory for 3 or 4 years don't look particularly good. And that is a problem that jcwings has and will continue to have until they get rid of that backlog of models. And it can be seen in a lot of the models that are being released this month, to be honest. But at the same time, the factory also has a lot of gems sitting in it, models that nobody's made and you really would like to see. So yeah, you get these two sides of the coin with jcwings release sets. You get models which seem completely worthless and are obsolete, and then you also get models which look amazing and are completely fresh. So this month's set of 23 models contains, kind of in equal portions, that kind of thing, and that's what we'll have a look through in this video. Obviously, before I get into that, please subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying it, and chuck a like on the video. Check me out on Instagram at yesterairlines and at Facebook, and obviously yesterday's airlines.com, the website, as I always say, the key to a lot of the work that I do. So without further ado, let's get in and see what's good and what's not so good from jcwings this month. So 23 models, let's try and get through these, especially because there is quite a lot of repetition. And we're starting out with the Airbuses, and the first model up is an Airbus A320neo HBJDA in the colours of Swiss International Airlines. And yeah, this one is not exciting me at all, unsurprisingly, because we all know that a neo mold isn't particularly good, mainly because of the size of the engines, not exclusively. Also because jcwings have released a version of this already. They released JDB. They released it in 2020, and I have to say they completely stuffed up the cockpit windows on that one too. This one looks better from the picture I'm seeing, so that is good, but nonetheless still largely a pointless model, because it has been made by Panda Models on a much superior mold in 2022. Don't really see the need for this one, and the mold isn't very good. I'm going to start with a gas guzzler, unfortunately, and this one is going into that spot. Next up, we have an A321. It's Thomas Cook Airlines. So again, an airline that doesn't exist anymore, and this model's probably hanging around from when they did still. It is registered GTCDM. It is an A321. It is in their last scheme, and it's got I Love MCR titles on it. The A321 mold, yeah, it's okay, but nothing special. Certainly inferior to the HYGL and the Panda and the ngmodels version. Again, the model doesn't look dreadful, but it's not exactly exciting either, is it? And they have made several A321s in Thomas Cook colours previously. They made one with, looks like the LGBT heart on it, and they made one in standard colours as well. So they've made, and even Gemini got in and made one. So there's been 3 previous versions of an A321 in Thomas Cook colours, and the last one was made actually and announced this year. So again, they're just kind of get rid of these things, get them out of the warehouse, and this one's going into Workhorse. Third up is an Indigo A321 Neo VTIUA. Yeah, again, they've made it before. They made IUH, did have some extra titles on it. And in the meantime, ngmodels has made a couple of Indigo A321 Neos. Why would you buy the jcwings ones when you could buy the ngmodels ones? You'd have to be a bit mad, wouldn't you? So, again, this is just the model which has been hanging about. They haven't got around to releasing. And it's come back to bite them somewhat because the original model came out in 2020, so they could have released both of them then probably. And again, it's a gas guzzler, mainly because of the mould. Okay, there are 2 more Airbuses, both A330s, but not the same marks. First one up is an Air Canada A330-300 CGEGP. It's wearing Star Alliance colours. I actually thought when I first saw this that, hey, this looks really good and maybe this is quite exciting, but I just haven't been paying attention because jcwings have made it already. They made GEGI in the Star Alliance colours and they made that in 2020. And again, how long is this one hanging around for? The model actually looks surprisingly decent and their A330 seems to be getting a bit better, but it can't compete really with the NG one. And again, NG have also made GEGI and they made it that year. So it's probably, again, a little bit unnecessary, this model, and even though the release looks quite nice, it's Workhorse, isn't it? And finishing off a rather lackluster bunch of Airbuses, we've got a Starlux A330-900 B58302. Not a lot to say here. jcwings have made, obviously, one of these previously. They made it in 2021, made 58301, it's been made by Phoenix 2. Aviation 400 have also announced this one. Yeah. This model, again, you look at the picture and go, wow, that looks really nice. And I do quite like the mould, but they've made it before. So, you know, what am I going to do? It's Workhorse, isn't it? So, a really, really ordinary bunch of Airbuses there from jcwings this month. But things do get better. But you have to kind of get through quite a lot of chaff to find the best bits. Into Boeing territory, and we start off with a classic. We've got a Lufthansa 737-300 DABXC wearing the cheap Boeing scheme delivery colours. That would be a bit more exciting if, again, it hadn't been made already recently. It was made in 2022 by, well, it was branded as Miniature Models, but it's using the Panda mould, and they made DABXE and DABXD. So this one's less exciting, but it is classic and it will be nice. And I know some people, for some reason, have issues with the Panda 737-300. I don't really know why, because I think it's spectacularly good. But I'm going to put this one in high flyer, and that's perhaps generous. But it's classic. Nice to see some natural metal. Maybe that's enough. You could perhaps argue this is Workhorse, but I think it'll probably just be good enough to get the high flyer. Next up is definitely a Workhorse though, and that's a re-release of the Aeroflot 737-400 they made recently. So this one's VPBAN. I got the previous release, which was out, I think, last year. This one is effectively exactly the same. Perfectly decent model, old mould, nice enough scheme, but it's Workhorse. It's very much Workhorse, just kind of going through the numbers. And the next 737 is a Series 800, and I can't feel particularly excited about this one either. It is a Ryanair, though I think it's really technically Malta Air, but it's in Ryanair's scheme. It's registered 9HQCT and it's got Gdansk City of Freedom titles on it. JC have made quite a lot of Ryanair 737s, often with some special titles on them. None of them are particularly exciting or look particularly good because the mould isn't particularly good. And again, NG's been here recently and hit it out of the park with a couple of very nice standard colour 737s with different winglets. So, yeah, again, kind of pointless model. But there are plenty of Ryanair collectors out there, and maybe they want this very specific version for their fleets. Who knows? I've been tempted recently to be putting these 737-800s into Gas Guzzler, but actually I'm minded in this case to put this one as workhorse. Didn't look too bad. Again, the finished product doesn't look too bad, and again, there's probably some demand for it. So a lot of workhorse happening here. The next one is also 737-800. This one's Chinese, Gemin Airlines B1913, and this is wearing a scheme which I'm slightly repulsed by and slightly interested in at the same time. I really don't like the minions. I'm perhaps the only person in the world who thinks they're incredibly annoying and have ruined several films. No, I really can't stand the minions, and even though I click Chinese Airlines, I'm put off by cartoon-related schemes. As you know, I'm not a Pokemon fan on aircraft. So, yeah, I don't know about this one. I'm pretty sure the model's near production, but they can't show a picture of it because rights. You know, it's got Universal and Minions on it, so got to be careful. Yeah, it is unique. No one else has made this, and that is making me a little bit more interested in it. I am tempted. I don't like the mold though. I really don't like the mold. It really has to see what this will look like when they actually produce the output. I'm going to put this one into High Flyer. It at least is unique, even if the mold is weak. So, generous. Been generous with both the High Flyers so far, I feel. They could easily both be workhorses. Next up is another re-release, and another re-release that they probably should have got out earlier because now it looks a bit bad. It's Belavia from Belarus, currently neck deep in helping the Russians attack Ukraine. This one is 77 MAX 8 EW546PA. They made EW528PA, and in fact that looks like it only came out very recently, judging by the pictures I'm seeing. It looks really good actually because, you know, I like their Max mold, but Belavia is not a particularly great choice, and I don't believe, I could be wrong because I haven't actually checked, but I don't believe that these aircraft are still with Belavia, probably because of sanctions. So, yeah, they'd have done better to get this out when they actually made it, which looks like it probably was 2021, 22-ish, so judging by the previous release. So, yeah, it's just not saying anything with workhorse because it is, again, a re-release. A lot of re-releasing going on here. Now we're into the wide-body territory, and jcwings wide-body molds typically are better than their narrow bodies. We've got a KLM 747-400, PHBFG. This is one which has been kind of pre-announced for a while. It's even been sold in some places. I know that it, for example, in the Netherlands, it has been available. So it's just now getting into an official release set. It's got a big 100 titles on it. It's on the new mold, so it should be good, though obviously the undercarriage is a bit short. The big thing about this model is it's one of those ones that comes with the aviation tag, just to make sure that it ramps the price up and you're forced to buy something you don't actually want or need. So I don't know really why they do that. And it's annoying they're doing it with 747s, which are reasonably highly sought after, but less so when you've got to pay for an aviation tag on top of the actual model. And that's annoying. I don't like that. I probably wouldn't get this model still for myself because it's a bit too new, the scheme, but I'm certainly not going to buy it with an aviation tag attached to it. Looking back through previous versions, there have been quite a few releases in this scheme, which is the straight cheat line version of the 2003 colours. It's been made multiple times by Phoenix, obviously, on their terrible mould. It's also been made, though, by Wittywings and InFlight on their much, much better mould. But those models are probably quite hard to come by nowadays. They were made in 2012. So, yeah, I'm going to put this one into High Flyer. Potentially could have done better if it didn't come with the aviation tag. That is off-putting, and I can't believe there are many people out there keen to buy the model and the aviation tag together. I think it's a mistake to package them up that way, but not my decision. Should also say this one comes in flaps up and flaps down config too, so there are two versions of the model available. Couple more Boeings to go. And we've got a 747-8 freighter, Cargo Lux, LXVCE. There have been a lot of Cargo Lux 747-8 freighters. This will be the 13th model. And they've been made by a mixture of Gemini JC and Phoenix. All the molds are okay. But obviously people have issues with the humps on the jcwings version, though I think they may have modified it. And in fact, look at the picture here. The hump does look better. I can't be certain of that. This one's got a 50 years logo on the forward fuselage just under the cockpit, but otherwise it's the standard scheme. It's not an interactive version, and when you look back through a lot of the JC and Gemini releases, they are interactive. So it's the first time for quite some time that JC has released one which is not interactive, and maybe that makes this more appealing for some people. But then again, you'd probably bought the Phoenix version that came out in 2020 if you were super keen to get a non-interactive 747-8 freighter in Cargo Lux colours. Yeah, I'm not sure what to do this one. I think I'll high fly this one as well. Yeah, not sure why I'm doing that, but I think I'll... And now we're into 777 territory. A couple of what I'm sure will be lovely 777 releases, but both of them are not new or special in a sense. First up is Aeromexico N745AM and the lovely polish scheme that Aeromexico had. And this comes in flaps up and flaps down. I really like the jcwings 777. The input, or the, not the input, but the impact of this model is, however, significantly lessened by the fact that jcwings have made, ngmodels, apologies, have made that this year exactly the same aircraft. And their version came out looking very nice as well. And I, at the time, resisted getting it, but I am tempted by this, I have to say. I am tempted by it. And I think it will look really nice. And that temptation is, again, luring me to put this into high flyer. But again, since it has been made before, you could easily say that this could be workhorse. But I do think the JC's 777 has the edge slightly over the NG. And I do really like it. So I'm going to high flyer at this one. But to finish off the Boeings, we have one from New Zealand. We've got a 777-300ER. It's the ZKOKQ. I've actually flown on this aircraft. I flew on it to... Where was I going? It was only a short haul flight. Fiji, I think it was. I'm pretty sure that I flew Auckland to Fiji on this aircraft not that long ago. This one is wearing the All Blacks scheme, and this version comes again, flaps up and flaps down variants. Again, it should be really nice. The mould is excellent. Looks really good from the pictures. Nothing wrong there. But the only criticism I'll have here again is that they're way behind the curve. It's been released by Aviation 400. And that was a really nice version. I actually reviewed it at the site. That was made in 2021 and I bought that. It's also been released by Phoenix, and even JC had made it before, but on their old mould. So this one has less reason to exist, I feel, than the Aeromexico because it's been made 3 times previously. And I'm going to put this one into workhorse, which, again, fairly subjective. But as you can see, there's a lot of models here which are either slap bang workhorse or just maybe sneaking over the line into high flyer, but there's nothing really setting the world alight in the Airbus and Boeing side of this release set at all. It's all pretty ordinary and standard fare. Fortunately, when we move away from the Airbus and Boeings, things improve significantly. And in fact, there are releases made for aircraft made by ATR, Embraer, Kawasaki, and McDonnell Douglas. So that's unusual. Decent diversity of non-Airbus and Boeing releases this month, and some really nice models, starting with an Air New Zealand ATR 72, the aircraft registered ZKMVX. It's wearing the current scheme, the black and white standard scheme that Air New Zealand has. These ATRs used to be Mount Cook and Air New Zealand Link, but then they got rid of Mount Cook and merged it into the main line. And they've made a good variety, actually, jcwings, of Air New Zealand ATRs. They've made the All Black scheme, they made the Pacific Wave, and they made the scheme in between where they took off the Pacific Wave but kept the rest of that livery. So they've made 3 or 4 and they've all been super nice, and this one is kind of completes the set almost and looks super nice and is tempting for me to buy, I have to say. And probably the first model here which is really, really tempting me to get it, and very much deserving of a supersonic, I feel, because no one else is making ATRs, and it's a lovely little mold, and the finished model here looks really good from the pictures I've seen too. So yeah, supersonic, that one, no problem, and it's good to get one on the board, I feel. So excellent stuff. But it is not the last one on the board, because the next model up is probably my favourite model of the month. It is a Virgin Blue Embraer ERJ190, VHZPI is the reg. Virgin Blue is not an airline which has been particularly well treated in 400 scale. There have only been 8 previous models, all of them 737s, and all of them from a long time ago. A lot of Virgin Australia, but not a lot of Virgin Blue, which is a real shame because their scheme is a bit more exciting. And I've flown on them a bit. Actually, I've flown on a Virgin Blue ERJ190, and I flew on that in 2009. I was going from Melbourne to Hobart in Tasmania for an awesome holiday. Can highly recommend going to Tasmania if you get the opportunity. And Hobart's a lovely little airport. And yeah, got to fly on one of these E-Jets. So this one is super, really, like probably the best model this month for me. It looks really good. The picture isn't very high quality, but I'm liking the look of what I'm seeing here. It's got the aerials. The mold isn't spectacular, I admit, could be improved, but no one else is making E-Jets, and this is the sort of thing that JC should be doing. So this one, again, supersonic all the way, absolutely no problem there. Really, really nice looking model, great release choice, and hell, I've flown on it too, though it wasn't this reg. I flew on the ZPA, I think. But still, great, great choice. Love it. Next up is another E-Jet. This one is smaller. It is a 170. It's Aeromexico Connect. The reg is XAGAY. And yeah, another solid choice, I think. Don't have a picture of this model actually, but I do believe it is still going to be one of the releases out reasonably soon. It isn't unique though, in a sense that it has been made before. Herpa, oddly, have made it. They made XAGAM and in the same scheme, and that was made in 2018. So it has been made before, but yeah, I think this one will be a better version, and it's still a really good choice. And I think I'll put this one into high flyer. And again, slightly tempted to get it, but colour scheme's outside of my era, really. I don't collect Mexican aircraft this recent, so no, I don't think I will. The next 2 aircraft, not regional jets. The first one up is a JASDF, Japan Air Self-Defense Force. It's Kawasaki C1. The reg is 681014 if you care, which you probably don't. These are pretty niche releases, the sort of thing I'd usually like, but don't collect military transporters, and can't say the mold here is spectacular. This is the 3rd Kawasaki C1 that JC have made. The undercarriage effectively kind of slightly damages this model, a little bit chunky, especially in the nose gear. And this one looks almost exactly the same as the first release. In fact, I can't see any real difference. The colour scheme, the camouflage patterns, the high-vis panels, it all looks the same. So yeah, I'm just going to put it into Workhorse and kind of forget about it. It doesn't excite me, the mould isn't particularly good. And yeah, it's not interesting for me anyway. But the next model it's Chinese, but it's Chinese classic. It is a CAAC MD82 B2101, and yeah, I'm really surprised that no one's made no one has made a CAAC MD84. But then again, given the lack of MD80s, it's not too surprising. This is almost certainly the same model which was announced by YU Models more than a year ago and still hasn't turned up their version of it for the Chinese market. But in the same way that JC released the China Xinjiang IL-86 that YU had. They appear to be releasing exactly the same MD-80 that YU have bought off them. I don't really know how they get away with that. The model looks pretty good. The aerials look a bit big, as always with JC models, but the model looks good. And even though there are NG models, MD-80s on the horizon, I still think I probably will get this model. Because who knows when NG will get to it. And it looks good. It looks good. So I'm going to supersonic this one too. The mold isn't the best MD-80 in the universe, but it's good, and this release looks nice natural metal colors and good classic materials, so definitely supersonicking that one. So that is the first 19 of these releases, and all 19 that are likely to be released within the next 2 to 3 months. There are a couple of other releases they also announced here that bring us up to number 23, and these will be slower out the gate, or they haven't been begun yet. So I'll quickly cover these off, but you've got to bear in mind that they're going to be a long time before they get to market, and potentially, you know, who knows. So what we've got is starting an ITA A220-300 EIHHM. This is very much the sort of release that you'd expect from Gemini, actually, but they haven't announced it, and nobody else has announced an A220. So in that reflection, it's good. The mold, they've slightly duffed the undercarriage, haven't they? In fixing the undercarriage to make it better, they've slightly duffed it, so now it looks kind of nose high. But I'm still going to put this high flyer, and it'll be interesting to see when it shows up and how it looks when it does. But I'm going to high flyer it for the moment. And joining it in high flyer is a Canadian Air Force A330, or a CC330 Husky, as they call it. Scheme's nice. No one else has made it before, and should look okay. And I'll put it in a high flyer again. Benefit of the doubt. Not the best A330 mold, but okay, and actually better than it was when it first came out. And next, we've got a model which I'm surprised is a future release because it's not anything new. It's a TUI Airways 767-300 ER GOBYF. Has been made previously, been made by Phoenix. They made GOBYG in the same scheme, the wavy scheme, and that was in 2020. Both molds are fine. Again, there are plenty of 767s on the horizon, so you could argue maybe this is not needed because you could get the NG or the Panda ones. But I'm not going to think like that. I'm sure this will be a nice release. Hopefully it won't be years before it comes out. And given the demand and the models that are out at the moment, I'm willing to high flyer it. But again, who knows when it's going to show. Maybe by the time it turns out, it might just be a workhorse model because NG might have made it already, but who knows? Don't know. So I'm not going to count my chickens, and I'll put this into high flyer. And that just leaves us one further future aircraft. It's a Saudi Arabian Airlines, or Saudia, 787-10. It's in their new colours, although what were the retro colours, but are now gone back to being the standard scheme. And hell, well, that's actually a good decision, and it pains me to say something nice about Saudi Arabia, but that's a good decision. It's a cool scheme with the cheat line. This one has got a Red Sea logo on the back of the fuselage, which looks okay, it looks quite nice, and everything looks quite nice with those nice bright cheat lines on. But I'm just going to workhorse this. There have been several Saudi 787s announced in the new retro scheme, including one by NG, which will be out quite soon. So, yeah, not that exciting, really. And I'll put this one into workhorse. So, where does that leave us as a total? It leaves us with a month which actually is weaker than I thought when I initially looked at the list, because I was kind of bamboozled by the Virgin Blue and the Air New Zealand ATR. So it's a great month, I think, for people who live in Australasia or have a connection with Australia or New Zealand, and a lot less interesting if you're elsewhere. There's a lot of repetition. They just need to get those models out because they're just taking up space and they're kind of pointless. And that's kind of a shame. And I guess this is going to be the case for quite a while until they can really get down what's in that warehouse. But yeah, it is the way it is. And maybe there are clicks out there who missed out the first time round on things like the Star Alliance A330 and will be eager to get these other models. So I'd really like to see what their sales are like, but obviously don't get to see that kind of data. So overall, it's a pretty mediocre month, but with a couple of real standouts in the form of those regionals from Australasia and that Chinese MD-80, and everything else is kind of like, yeah, kind of seen it. Though some of those models will be super nice, like the Air Mexico 777. Yeah, probably not exciting enough for most people when they've been recent versions made by others. Okie doke, well that is it for this month's jcwings releases. I'm off on a very short break to Madeira, so I will be absent for a little while, but I assume that Gemini and NG will be announcing their next models in the next week or two, and I'm sure I'll try and capture those in a ranking video when the time comes. So thanks very much for watching, everyone, and I will see you soon.